Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Subscribing to My Podcast. Because I have a new guest featured every week, it makes it very difficult to maintain consistent viewership. So if there's one thing that you can do to support me or the guest featured on the show, it's by interacting with my channel in every way that you can. You can always decide to unsubscribe later if you decide that you hate me or my show. With that plugging aside, enjoy my discussion with Jacob Gunter is the current president of OU's chapter of Students for Life. I actually interviewed a previous president at the chapter at Iowa State, and I thought it was a really wonderful conversation. So it was one of the first places that I looked at and reached out to, especially because abortion has been somewhat of a hyperfixation of mine. I really enjoy talking about the conversation. I find it really interesting. But most importantly, I find that both sides have a lot of things that they need to learn and gain if they're going to be able to engage in a conversation like this. But Jacob, it's wonderul having you on. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and then tell viewers some important things that they should know about you.
Sweet. Yeah, well, thank you, Elijah. It's great being here. I've been looking forward to this for the last, 2 weeks now. My name is Jacob Gunter. I am a junior here at OU. I'm studying supply chain management and marketing. I've been the president of Norman Students for Life for a good 3 months now. I was the vice president last year, but I did pro-life work in high school too. So I was part of the founding of my pro-life at the high school. So that was kind of fun. That's where I got my foot in the door. It's a funny story. We don't need to get into it right now if you don't want to. It was a really, for a long time, it was just a topic that was just because of, not just because, but mainly because of my religion. I'm Catholic. And so, even coming to OU, I've met so many people who do not agree with me. But I've even encountered abortion, or maybe not abortion, I should say, the threats and the being scared about unplanned pregnancies even firsthand. And so it's been fun to get in this work. And so, I've heard longer than you were wanting, but yeah.
Oh, no, that's perfect. Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. I want to start a little bit about, let's start with the base, I guess, your pro-life argument, just so that we can kind of anchor the other things that you're going to be saying in a real emotional logical, thought process from you. So what is making you pro-life, and then how are you kind of encouraging pro-life to other people?
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, so I think I originally, like what I said, I originally was pro-life because of my religion, which I don't think is necessarily a bad reason to be pro-life. But I think the more that I look into it, the more scientifically that I look into it, the more convinced I am that, I guess I'll give the argument, that life begins at conception, right? That human life, at the moment the sperm meets the egg, that there is a unique set of DNA, that there's a unique, maybe not every single, part that you're going to have for a human life. But at that moment, and that's in 6 weeks is every function of life. But at that moment, it's a unique set of DNA, and it's a unique life that we have, human life. So I think that's the basis of my claim. And then I think anything after that we should not allow, and we should not allow in law. So I think that's the main.
Yeah, well, and I think an important extension of that too, with the pro-life argument, is that when you're ending that life, you're ending a person. You're ending the extension of somebody who grew up to be like you and me.
Exactly.
And so there's there's a valuable reason as to why people would be fighting for pro-life views, because every single conception ended up growing up into a person that allows this podcast to exist, that allows you as the listener to hear it. Yeah. And I think that's an often missed aspect of the pro-life argument, is that when they say they're valuing life, it's more than just just restricting women's rights, which I think is one of the cringiest ways to view the positions. It's more than just that. It's a pursuit of life. It's an enjoyment of people, something like that. Which I think is an important aspect of that.
Yeah, and I mean, we all started the same way. I was going to say all of us, but we're twins,
Oh, yeah,
so, we all pretty much started the same way, the same general way. And so I think we've all seen those commercials where from pro-life ads where it's there's 15 people here who are not here, they're supposed to be here, but they got aborted. And so I think that's also another big thing. I think we see that a lot in pro-life advertising and stuff. Is I even have a thing right there that has all the different stages of development, and it has it shows little pictures of what the fetus looks like. And I think it's just show people that, hey, these are people just like you and me that that could have been here and that could have made a difference in the world, but didn't, because got aborted for one reason or another. Whether those reasons are right or not, we can get into it. But
Yeah, sure.
For one reason or another. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like a good anchoring point.
Yeah.
For the rest of the conversation too, so
Yeah.
that when people are listening, it's really important, especially as a pro-choice person, which is the argument that I'm going to be defending. Is that like all of your defenses against or for pro-choice need to have that in mind.
Exactly.
That the opposition is saying that it is murder, that it is killing a person. And so if you don't have those that negative consequence in mind when you're arguing with it, you're just going to lose, and you're going to look terrible. Beyond the fact that you might be arguing for something that's immoral too. And so I think that's really important too. But to get into a little bit about the foundation with Students for Life, like what do you guys do on campus? What is your club? What does it mean to actually advocate for this stuff?
I'll start at like the national level, because like Students for Life is a national. We have over 1,000, like we're on over 1,000 college campuses. So I wrote down their mission statement just so I wouldn't get it wrong. But it's just they exist to recruit, train, and mobilize the pro-life generation to abolish abortion. Like that's their mission. And so each way they do it is a little bit different. I was looking at the Iowa State's Students for Life, and it was cool to see how he does it. We're really on kind of we're trying to do a lot of new stuff here at Norman Students for Life. But our mission statement, we have our own personal, is to glorify God by promoting, educating, and renewing the dignity and sanctity of every human life from conception to natural death on the campus at OU. And so I really think we have like 3 pillars. We don't like clearly say this, but I really think we're trying to push 3 pillars. Number 1 is campus outreach, right? So we're just like this morning we were on campus tabling at 10:30. We're just trying to get people to know that we exist. I've had a lot of conversations with people, and they're like, especially at the involvement fair, I don't know if you were there, but they were like, I had no idea you guys existed. And it's like, yeah, we do exist. And so we're trying to really push campus outreach. So whether that be like on October 13th, we're going to have a big National Students for Life is coming down to OU, and they're gonna have this big display. I don't know the intricate details of it. That's my guy Cooper, he's our on-campus outreach director. But we're gonna try and like table bi-weekly and stuff, just get the message known. And I think the next is service events. I think you see this with a lot of pro-life movements. So whether we're gonna volunteer at different like pro-life clinics or pro-life things, or maybe it's go pray outside an abortion clinic. Like we're gonna go do service things that are trying, which I think is our overarching goal, is trying to end abortion. And then also just like community, like we're trying to build community of pro-life people here, because like abortion is one of the most deeply held beliefs that people have, and it triggers people a lot, and it also like a lot of people like hold their religions and stuff and all that in existence with abortion. And so we're trying to help show people like, hey, we have pro-life people here that are trying to do this, and so you're not alone. And I think maybe you have a different experience, but I feel like a lot of people our age are pro-choice, or at least the ones that express it are pro-choice, I should say. And so I think even giving people an avenue of like, hey, we do exist, and like pro-life people are here. So those are like our 3 pillars, I would say. We're really trying to do new things this year, so it's gonna be exciting to see this year. Do, but
I think I think that's great, and I like just advocation on like either side. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna have a belief, you should push it out. You should believe it and do it. So I really appreciate what you guys do, and I respect a lot of the stuff that you're doing. I do think that just to get into like broad argument stuff. Can you kind of explain if your position maybe differs from other pro-life people's positions, but can you kind of explain both arguments? Like, can you explain like the pro-life side and then the pro-choice side to kind of like start us in this conversation and like see what's happening? Yeah.
So I said earlier, the pro-life is that at the moment of conception, right, the moment of fertilization, I should say, there is a unique life there, a human life, and so from there on out, like it has rights attributed to it, and from then on out, abortion is murder, right? That's what I would say, is that abortion is murder. Now, whether like the woman should get in prison, like this whole different argument, I don't think that, but some people do think that. But I think that's the pro-life, that's the overarching pro-life opinion. That's what most people hold. And the pro-choice opinion, I think that differs maybe more. I could be wrong on that, but like even just like watching your stuff, and watching other people's stuff just online, they think that maybe a human life there exists, but they aren't maybe a person like you think you hold to, or maybe there isn't a life there that exists, and so they don't think that killing it, or they don't think that terminating that pregnancy would be murder, and so that's why they think it's right. Maybe they don't have a certain rights attributed to that specific fetus or embryo. So I think that overarches
Yeah.
opinions. Yeah.
I think that's both sides. And then I guess before we get into like a specific argument or a specific disagreement, do you have like specific pro-choice arguments that you feel like just totally miss the mark, or like aren't addressing the actual argument that you're making, or like you hear all the time and you're like, this is just bad. Not even because I disagree, but it's just bad as far as an argument goes.
I think the main one in my head is my body, my choice. You know, I think like, I mean, that's one so easy to go like, do you have 4 arms and 4 legs and 2 heartbeats? Like it's like obviously not. And I think it's a different thing, or like whether the baby needs to have the mother to survive, right? But I think when you get into the territory of my body, my choice, it's like, if you just even take a step back, like even seeing if this is a person, not a person, whatever it might be, a baby, not a baby, like you can tell that that's a distinct thing, at least, you know, whether it's alive or anything, that's the point of debate. Mm-hmm. And so I think like saying that the woman has bodily autonomy, I also think it's hard to draw the line when you go there. Is like, does the woman have bodily autonomy up until the point of birth, or is it like a certain thing? You know, I that's the main debate here. But I think that's, in my head, that's probably the main.
Yeah,
that's what we encounter mostly on college campuses, is stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the big things is that it's especially true with the pro-choice side, but it's also kind of true with the pro-life side. But by saying pro-choice, you are assuming the conclusion then working off of that. Yeah. So the idea is like, no, you don't have a choice to murder somebody. Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody does.
Yes.
What you're really trying to say when you say my body, my choice is you're saying it's my choice to do this because it's not murder.
It's not murder.
You know, and then pro-life is kind of the other way too, where you're saying that it's pro-life. Yeah. What you're assuming is that like it is a life enough to, you know, a life enough to restrict the choice to be able to terminate it or something.
And most people in the right mind wouldn't say, I have the right to murder somebody. You know? Like, most people wouldn't say that. Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is that like everybody is against murder and everybody is against restricting rights.
Yeah,
the argument here is that either like it's that you don't have the choice to do it because what you're doing is so heinous, or like obviously I don't think I'm murdering somebody. You know? So it's like I hate this like wielded morality that people do, where they're like calling people murderers or calling people like you just want to restrict rights. I get stuff like this all the time on my TikTok where it's like I don't know why I have to defend this, but like men just want to restrict our rights. It's like who is out there like planning like. I don't even get the benefit of this, especially if everybody hates you for it. But like, I've never got it. I've never understood it. Yeah. But people I've
never met somebody like that either. On like me personally, I've never met somebody who's like, I want to restrict women. You know, like I've never. I don't
know if it exists directly like that. Exactly. You know, like it might exist as somebody's like deep down desires. But even then, that's a stretch to me. But I hear it all the time, and it just bothers me too. So.
Can I ask you that? Like, what do you think is like the main, like what do you think is one of the I don't know, what was the question you asked? Like one of the main things that are just like not there. Like,
do you
have any other?
Well, truthfully, and this is kind of a point that I was making off camera that I've found myself making a lot, is that I feel, despite defending the pro-choice position, I feel like pro-choice people are wildly uneducated about the issue, and that they're kind of like accidentally right, and that like they've made the decision to feel this way, but the evidence that they have for it is wildly unsupported. Yeah. And so I think that what you'll find is they have the most arguments that are like don't actually address the point, or like don't actually discuss what needs to be discussed, especially in regards to murder. So much of it just kind of jumps around that murder question and just assumes it, and then it's like, well, no, you have to address that.
Exactly.
Hopefully you realize you have to address
that's the whole thing behind it.
Yeah, like you have to address it because truthfully, no side is looking at each other with good faith. They're both looking at each other with this idea that you just want to control women. It's like, well, if that's your starting point, then of course you're going to miss the exact thing, you know? Or the same thing with the pro-life side, where it's like, you're a murderer. It's like, well, not intentionally, you know? So I understand both sides. So I would reiterate the sentiment that you're saying. On the pro-life side, though, the only specific ones that I would say would be like kind of like emotive arguments that would be like something like, look at this, like this is a human, or like you're killing this thing, because what's that it's like morally implying that it's wrong, when like you would want to like logically say that it's wrong first, you know what I mean? You shouldn't try to like tug at somebody's emotions to convince them of this. if it is truly murder, you know what I mean? So like it's meeting them where they're at, where it's like, look, emotion's not going to get me. I feel like you're restricting my rights. So this isn't going to work for me. You're going to need something a little stronger. So I feel like pro-life people do it, but it's not as direct. It's not as it gets slogany once you get into the weeds for the pro-life people, but at its face, the pro-choice people are super slogany and like my body, my choice is like an undefeatable argument. Not actually, but like it's just so, like you can't engage with that. It's like it's so annoying. So I totally get that too. It's really interesting. I've never met somebody, or I've never talked to somebody, at least on the show, that at least understands my position or has done research. So it's like I'm like smiling throughout the show because you're referencing, and I can hear you. I can hear that you know what I think about things, and then you're like referencing around it. That's just bizarre to me. But
I had a professor in class this year. He said the difference between good to great is preparation. So I'm trying to follow that.
I'm impressed. I'm just impressed. I can already hear that you've thought about the things that I've said, which is wild. So I guess if you would like, I can start. We can just get into like the actual disagreement. I can start on my position if you'd like, or if you want to flex some of your preparation, if you want to tell me my position, I think that would be really cool, just to show the audience that you're approaching this in good faith. I can do it too, but
I can say what I believe. I know, and you can correct me.
Oh, absolutely.
I know you had a big conversion. You were pro-life, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had a big conversion to it after you watched a Destiny debate, right?
Yeah.
It was Destiny. I was actually watching it like 20 minutes ago.
That's crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
And so I remember hearing that, and it was really, I don't know how pro-life you were or anything before. I didn't remember that, but your position is basically this, is that you think life begins at conception, right? And you think like the moment that it shouldn't be murder, and the moment that the moment shouldn't be murder, and the moment that it could be killed or terminated, I should say, I don't know if that's the right word, is the moment, I don't know the exact definition you said, but when you get consciousness, right? Yeah. And so after that moment, like, then it's murder, and you can't do it. And before that, then it's not murder. And you can do it. Is that a fair representation?
That's about right.
Do you want to add anything there? Yeah.
You know, I think that's a good working definition. Like I said, it depends on. There's a bunch of ways that you can engage with this that might end up changing the words that I use. Because sometimes people use certain words to describe things, and I dislike that, and some, whatever. So what I would say is that I'm always weighing the harms and the benefits of abortion. And so it's like you have a time scale of like week 1, week 2, week 3, and the harms stay the same until week 20.
Until week 20,
when the capacity for consciousness hits, and then the harms drastically rise up. And it's like now there's a ton of harm happening here, and you can no longer do it. That's my general. So a lot of people intuitively are like, that's when personhood is, or that's so like you have a life and then you have personhood. So a lot of people use that word. So a lot of people use that word. I'm okay with that. But I don't have I don't necessarily value personhood. I value harms, and when the harms are different. So, like I said, it just depends on how you want to talk about it and whatever too. So, I guess when you hear that kind of argument, where's your head at? Like, where are you trying to?
I have several different ways I can go, so we can go that avenue. I think this is really my first, with that argument specifically, and then we can talk about abortion as a whole later. I think that would be good. But so you said personhood starts at 20 weeks. I know you said you're not like, you want to do the harms.
Yeah, personhood is totally good. It's much easier to say.
Do you agree with that personhood begins at 20 weeks?
Yeah, personhood begins at 20 weeks.
What is that before 20 weeks? What would you define that as? Like that?
Yeah.
Try to not define my own.
I would say it's a human life.
A human life, okay.
Or a living human is what I would say. A living human animal creature. Whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah, a living human creature. Okay. So I would ask this question: Why does personhood? Why does consciousness? You said it's because of the harm. I'll ask this: How? And I think you even mentioned this in your Iowa State video. It was how scientifically proven is the consciousness to be? Like, do scientists have a specific like this is the moment that consciousness begins, or is it like? Is it fluid? Is it?
Well, one of the things about consciousness specifically is that it is notoriously the most difficult thing to define and describe. So that is like the most valid question you could be asking with this kind of thing. So I totally get it. Generally, Okay, generally science is really comfortable saying that consciousness is associated with the brain.
Yes.
And that like things without brains cannot be conscious is the idea. That's how we don't worry that the floor is conscious or the table is conscious, because there's no brain, obviously it's not conscious. So the next step would be like, okay, well, what if I like, is the like hypothalamus conscious? Is the amygdala conscious? Is your arm conscious? Those, it's like, well, our arm's connected to the brain. It's like, is it conscious? We'd be like, okay, not really. Like we have cells in our body. We have cells in our body that react to things, but those are like the cells. Like there needs to be one central processing unit to have a conscious experience would be the idea. And so the reason why 20 weeks is the mark is because the hypothalamus connects all the other parts of the brain. And so now it's not just an amygdala, a frontal lobe floating around in your head. The hypothalamus connects it, and now it's like, ooh, systems online, brain. That's where I would say, what I always say too is that if that makes you uncomfortable, what we can do, as long as you're trying to find consciousness, what we can do is we can say, well, when can you guarantee that consciousness isn't there? And so you say consciousness is definitely not there at conception. It is definitely not there 5 weeks in. Definitely not there 10 weeks in. Maybe there 15 weeks. That's like if you really want it to be safe. And then you can kind of like keep going up. So you know what I mean? So if you wanted to push me down, I will honestly try to be wherever I expect consciousness to be. So if you scientifically push me down, I'll go down there with you. If you push me up, I'm a little more uncomfortable with that, but I'll go up there with you. But like that's a little scary.
And I think that's a very good way to think about it too. Because like if you go up, I mean, the chances of you actually
it's exactly. We want to be safe. We don't want to like harm a person or kill a person. From my perspective, you know. So like, people should be like that. Like I said, I've argued with a lot of pro-choice people who are not like that. But that's where I'm at.
I would still push back a little bit though. Would you be? So when let's just say when you're writing legislation, let's say you're like a senator or whatever, and you're writing legislation, would you want to do it at the moment that you said it's the moment it absolutely cannot have consciousness, or would you? Like, do you think that would still be restricting in a sense? Because let me just play a scenario. Let's say a woman finds a doctor who can say that, hey, my baby is not conscious at 18 weeks. You know, would you then be okay? Even though let's just say you said it at 15 weeks. Obviously, we're using weeks. You know, would that be something you'd be interested in doing? And I think this goes to the crux of the issue is we can use the term personhood all day long. You know, and people have different definitions of personhood, and there's not like one clearly define when personhood begins, but I think that's kind of my gray area is where are you going to draw the line when you're writing the legislation? You know, like, are you going to draw it? Because then if it's the 15 weeks, but then the woman finds a doctor who says that it's not conscious and it's nothing, that's kind of restricting, you know, I'm assuming that. So, because obviously I don't agree with that, but so like, what would you say to that? I think that'd be my next.
Your level of being in tune with this is incredible, by the way. So thank you for that. This is a really good question. I think, as long as you there's a couple things. As long as you are earnestly addressing the spectrum, then you're good. So like, on one end, it's like, we need to not be killing people. Arguably, it's the most important end. So you're going to be moving down towards the middle there. But then you also need to be like, how far towards conception can I get while also giving women the most freedom? So without killing a person. So you're going to find the safest line there. So if you set it at 15 weeks, but something is conscious at 18 weeks, then that woman should have gotten it 3 weeks earlier. You know what I mean? Like that, you would whatever line you set, as long as you're earnestly approaching that middle, that is the line. So like if now. No, it doesn't matter. That's the line. There are other things you could say. What I will say too is that there's this famous like philosophical parable called like Loki's wager. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
But a bunch of goblins capture Loki, and then he says, and then they're gonna kill him, and they need to kill him, and he says, look, I'll let you decapitate me as long as you don't take an inch off of my neck. And then the goblins are looking, it's like, well, this is kind of the head, this is kind of the neck. Dang, is this the neck or is this the body? And they spend so much time arguing that Loki just gets to walk free because they couldn't find a line on like when the neck becomes the head or the rest of the body. You can kind of do that game too with this question of when should I draw the line? Because you can constantly quibble over where this line is and then never make a decision. So it's not really a good argument to be like, well, this line is hazy, so we shouldn't attempt it. there should be an attempt somewhere. You would just have to accept that some women won't get ultimate freedom because, you know, we weren't super efficient as to where that line is, just so we can make sure we're not killing babies.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Okay.
So as long as you're earnestly approaching that, I'm cool with whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet. I guess I have another, changing like the area, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be, and I don't know your position very well on this, development and like developing into a person. Can you just tell me like why you don't think having the ability to develop into something that is conscious, why that shouldn't still at least be valued and have the life? Do you see what I'm asking?
Yes, this is another big like an important conversation. So this is why I kind of made that clarification that it's not that I inherently value people necessarily, it's that I'm always weighing the harms.
Okay.
So the reason why consciousness is important is because consciousness uniquely allows us to experience harms. Something cannot experience a harm if there's no consciousness to experience it. And so that's why that's important. So when you say like it will develop a conscious experience, it's like that is true. But the fact that it doesn't have it right now allows it to experience zero harms. And the interesting thing too is that there's this dilemma. It's like, well, are you harming it by robbing it of its future life? That's the kind of idea. So that's like the next step. What I would say is that when you say you're robbing it of its future life, the it has to be conscious, which it's not. So like the reason why murder is bad is because like if I killed you, I am robbing you of your future life. But that's because from your perspective, it's life and then nothingness. And so I caused that nothingness. However, from the perspective of the fetus, it is nothingness and then continued nothingness. Somewhere in the middle, an abortion had happened, but there's no change in the state because of the abortion. So that's kind of like how I can get a little bit more into that like second half, but that's like the general argument that I go down. Can
you go into that second half a little more? Okay.
So the important part is that you have like two types of harms. You have like a perceived harm and like an experienced harm. That requires a consciousness. Like, no, I am being killed. Like, I am feeling the abortion right now. So that's bad. No matter what, we cannot have that.
And that's, which harm is that? Sorry.
That's the experienced harm. Like, I am feeling abortion. Then you have this like universal harm that isn't experienced by anybody, but still exists. A great example by Trent Horn. Are you familiar with this guy? Great example from him was, imagine that you were a baby and when you were born you were going to receive an inheritance of $1 million. But before you were born, somebody destroys that $1 million in a way that nobody knows that baby was supposed to receive $1 million. The question is that baby harmed? Everyone's intuition is like, that baby's harmed. Even though the baby doesn't know that he was supposed to get $1 million and will never know. There are two universes, one where the baby was supposed to experience it, or supposed to get $1 million, and one where it isn't. Because of your action, you put us in the isn't universe, and that's bad. I agree with you that is a universal harm. But the question is, does that universal harm outweigh the benefits of the mother in an abortion? And so it's like, yes, the universal harm exists. It's like, yes, the world would be better if that baby were in it. The world would be better if that person were there. So I understand it. I agree with you. There is a universal harm there. But because it's not experienced by anybody, nobody can measure it. Nobody can say this is affecting me in this way because there's no way to actually experience it by anybody. I just can't see how it could possibly outweigh the benefits of the mother. So like financial benefits, body changes, stuff like that. Like the benefits of the mother is just too great to seriously consider that.
Okay, I have a lot of different areas in my head
absolutely,
right now. Absolutely. So you would say that the reason the experience consciousness is good because that's a person. The universal consciousness, you're saying, let me just play a scenario, and I'm sure this has been, because you say the capacity to have consciousness is what determines the personhood, right?
The capacity to deploy consciousness at that moment.
At that moment, okay.
At any moment.
At any moments, okay. Because this was just a thought that ran in my head. I haven't thought this through completely.
No,
I'm sleeping in my bed. Obviously, the sleeping, I'm not going to say, like, if I die, But if you come into not you, let's like you said. If a person comes into my house and they come in with a gun and they want to murder me, right, and they shoot me in the head, I die without any pain, right? why would that still be wrong in your sense? Because obviously that's murder. You know, that's the definition of murder. Sure. But I didn't feel it, most likely. I don't know if science is different. If it does, you can correct me. But do you see where I'm going with that?
No, I absolutely understand. And this is like the next.
Exactly.
Perfect. You're right. You're attacking me exactly where I need to be attacked. So the idea is, one, there's this philosophical idea that nobody experiences death. So there's that too, to where it's like, definitionally, like when you die, you don't experience it because you're dead. So, but I'm not going to use that. What I would say is that they don't experience that harm, but like I said, you've ripped their future from them, and their future is really important. So I'd come back to that distinction where it's like life, conscious experience, then nothingness, and that nothingness was created by you. And so in the example of the fetus, it would be nothingness and then nothingness.
So, I would push back on that with the nothingness and then the someone, right?
Yeah.
I would say, I think this really gets down to the core of the thing.
Yeah.
It's like when you say nothingness, but when you look at it on the on scale, nothingness in comparison to consciousness, right? I can agree with that. It doesn't have consciousness.
Yeah.
But when you look at it and you just take a step back and you look at like you can look at these images, but you can even look at science, right? Like we know the gender by 20 weeks. We have a heartbeat by 20 weeks. We have its unique set of DNA by 20 weeks. I have this thing right here that just keeps on going, you know?
Yeah.
Like the arms and the legs are starting to form and develop by 20 weeks. That's where I have the problem, I would say, with the saying it's nothingness, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would correct me in the way I'm perceiving what you're saying, but I think that's what I would push back on the most is like, okay, I can agree that it's not conscious. Like, obviously, like, but I think the value shouldn't be placed on that consciousness. It should be placed on, is this a life that we're killing? Is this, I don't know if I would even say that it has the ability to develop. I mean, I would agree with that. I don't know if I would use that. But I would say that it's definitely not nothing, right? And maybe I'm not understanding you correctly. But
no, you're on the right track. It is everything to us.
Okay. What do you mean?
But the reason why I'm calling it nothingness is I'm always talking from the perspective of the fetus.
Okay.
So there is no perspective of the fetus. Okay. So there is nothing. So when I say nothingness, to us, it's our baby. It's gonna be it's gonna be a person.
Yeah.
And so, to us, from our perspective, killing that thing isn't just nothing. Like it is important, but we're talking about harms from the perspective of the fetus. Mm-hmm. So when I say nothingness, I'm only talking about the experience of the fetus. So the fetus has arms, it has DNA, it has its nose, or other things, right, like that. But it has those things, but it doesn't have perspective yet at all.
But when will it have perspective? Because in the womb, can it have perspective saying, I am a baby? I don't think it's going to say that, you know?
So by perspective, I mean consciousness. By perspective, I mean a capacity to deploy consciousness.
So does that fetus, and again, I mean, I'm assuming you don't remember when you were in the womb, but
exactly.
Does the fetus know that it's a baby?
You know,
does it know that it's alive? Does it, or does it just feel? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, this would be something where I would play actually a little bit into your rule book, where I would just say that we're just playing it safe. So at that moment, it's like, well, one, it can't express to us its consciousness because it's in a stomach.
Exactly.
And even if it could, it doesn't have the experience to actually communicate to us that it is conscious.
Yeah.
But because it has all the brain parts and they're all connected, and it doesn't add or lose any brain parts, it's somewhat safe to assume that it's conscious. They just can't communicate it to us. So we just play it safe. We're like, it has nothing adds or removes later in life. It just grows or shrinks. Okay. So might as well assume that it's conscious.
What I would say to that is, I can agree with you that it could feel pain, right? And that should be wrong, obviously. But I would still push back and say I still don't know if the fetus, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, But like I still think even if you look at a baby who was born, like maybe a baby that was born today, it's not gonna be able to tell you that it's alive. It might like see its surroundings and stuff, but it's not gonna be able to reason that it's alive, right? And I think that's probably another big point that pro-life people are trying to bring up, myself included, is like for a lot of people, like, and even Sharon Horn said this in the video, like these rich experiences of consciousness we're not experiencing until several years into our life, right? And so Because I don't think you would find a single person on this planet who remembers the day they were born. You know, like I think my earliest memory is when I was 2.5, when my sister was born, you know?
Yeah.
But I have no recollection of anything before that. And so maybe I'm misunderstanding where you're going with that. Because I don't know if the fetus can understand what they are. You know, maybe that's not what you're saying again. And correct me
No,
if-
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So this is gonna get really philosophical.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm glad we're here.
If you want to go there, yeah.
No. I'm glad we're here. What we're getting into is what is consciousness. Is what we're saying.
Yeah.
So all of memory isn't
Yeah.
consciousness. It's
Okay.
just a sign of consciousness. So this would kind of get into that distinction to where it's like. It might be that the fetus is conscious. It just can't communicate to us that it's consciousness.
And why is it? It's obvious why, but I just want to hear.
Why is it? Because it's still in the stomach, or like.
What about when it's just born? Why can it?
When it's just born, it lacks the experience of learning a language to communicate it to us, or it lacks.
Can the baby that's a day old, if we train it, can it learn a language? What
it would
lack because it doesn't have somebody to teach it? Or
yeah, well, it's that too.
Okay.
But, it lacks the experience to learn how to learn, which is something that develops. So, like I would say, there's a difference between experiential. I can already see where you're going to go.
Okay.
So I understand. There's a distinction between consciousness and then expressing consciousness, and then there's a distinction between having consciousness and then us. From our outside perspective, figuring out if it has consciousness. Okay. So this is like how the veganism debate works too, to where it's like, well, the dog is like wagging its tail. It's like, is it happy? It looks like it to us, you know. So we make a ton of assumptions about the perspectives of other people.
Yeah.
We have to use evidence. We have to use science. And the evidence that I'm using to support that a fetus has consciousness is that it has all the same brain parts as you and me. They're just, they haven't grown maybe to the size, but they're there and they're operating and they're working. And so when I look at you have all the brain parts that are operating and working that are connected, and you're conscious, at least I hope. So I can safely assume that the fetus is conscious because nothing in the brain has changed from then to here, to where you are. It's just grown and it's added the very important aspect, which is experience. It's experienced, you know, the world, life, language, learning, all that stuff. It's learned through life, so that's what it's missing. But learning isn't the only thing. Like, it could be true that as a fetus, you are just as conscious as you as me, and you're Einstein doing calculations and like in your head, and it's like you're the smartest baby ever, and then right when you leave the womb, you become baby, and you're like stupid. That could be true. We don't know. So we might as well just be on the safe end and assume.
Yeah, that's a really well articulated argument. I would push back again on the development part of that. Is is consciousness and is the brain development, is that whenever, I don't know if I want to go there. Shoot, okay. I think I'm good on that point. If you want to switch to different area.
I like I said. Well, first off, I just the way that conversation goes, just to like, take it from a bird's eye view. I feel like people would be very frustrated with your performance because you are understanding my perspective. It's like, it's really weird. Like, even us rationalizing murdering a life is already, or like killing a life would be a safer way to put it, but us rationalizing killing a life is wildly uncomfortable for people, let alone pro-life people. So your ability to do that with me is very impressive. Like I'm just like glazing a little bit, but like it's just how it is. Like, especially because the front conversation of is killing immoral is already like obviously, but it's like, well, is that true? You know, there are situations where we kill people all the time and it's moral, you know, so it's like, well, you know, this might be one of those is the idea. So like I said, the your ability to engage with this is unlike most abortion conversations, which I think.
And I think, I mean, that also goes back. I mentioned earlier, like some pro-life people want to put women in jail for abortions, and like I would never advocate for that. A, because I think they're victims of abortion, but B, I think it also goes back to that whole is killing. Like if stop using if someone intentionally like ran over somebody in their car and they didn't see them, obviously they're not gonna, unless they were driving recklessly. Like if something happens and it's not intentional. they're not going to be punished for it as severely as if it was intentional. You
Yeah.
know? And so that's why I wouldn't advocate for the woman. A lot of women, especially when they get abortions, maybe even pro-choice people, they're not realizing what they're killing. And even like they might be, like I said, they might be victims of it. And so, yeah, I think that intentionality part of it is very important with it. But sure, yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to be able to understand people's sides, and even if I don't fully agree with you, you know, I can still, and I appreciate you even because you're obviously you're pro-choice, but you still like acknowledge what pro-life people believe, and like you even say life begins at conception, you know, which is obviously a scientific fact, but so
which is, it's really important just to understand like what the argument is,
exactly,
what's exactly happening here. And I think that this was a good step by step, because everything that I posited, you would respond with, well, okay, like what about this? Because you were tracking where this was going and then where it was, which I think is really important too. One of the frustrating things too that I find that you and me will agree on is, I don't know why I'm fighting so many people on this. It's like wild, but consent to sex is consent to pregnancy.
Exactly.
And I just cannot understand the argument against this.
I don't understand that either.
Can you kind of talk about this? Do you have?
Yeah, and I think it also could go from my moral religious side too. You know? I don't understand that either, and I haven't really talked to that many people who believe that, but I think it's pretty obvious how how a fetus is grown, as a sperm and an egg, and so I think it's even when you have any slight ability to conceive, even if you're using contraception, which I'm Catholic, so I don't believe in contraception, but even if you're using that, you still have the chance to get pregnant. You know what's going to happen, you know the consequences, and I think there's a reason that many people have, schools have so much sex education nowadays. It's hey, we're showing you what happens whenever you do this, you know. I think it really goes back down to our society, where they're so enamored with pleasure, and they're so enamored with what am I going to get from something, not even really what can I give. I don't know if that makes any sense. People are so enamored with pleasure. I mean, we see that with smartphones, people spend so many hours a day on TikTok because of the dopamine, the pleasure from that. And so I think when we have a society that's like that, or even all the sugary drinks and stuff, when we know we probably should not be drinking a pumpkin spice latte with 60 grams of sugar, but we do it anyways because it feels good, and so I think that's along the lines of people. And then even I think you'd agree with me, a lot of people don't want to own up to their own actions either too. They'll do something. I mean, we see that so much in life in general. People do something and then they try to find a way out of it, even though they just need to accept what they did. I don't know if you have.
No,
I completely agree with you.
Pierce, what time is it right now? Sorry, I'm wearing a watch. It just doesn't work.
3:22.
Okay.
Sorry, I have my phone at a different time.
No, perfect. That's perfect. Okay. I'll cut that out.
You're good.
But yes, I think that's articulate. That's a really important point, especially with the accountability thing. I think even though I'm pro-choice, I will say this because it's important to understand. Because what'll happen is the most pro-choice comment I get when I'm articulating my pro-choice argument is they'll say that even if it is a person, I would still be allowed to kill it because no one has a right to my body. So they're doubling down. So it's no, I understand the argument, but I'm still able to kill it.
And I would agree with you. I would agree with that statement, that nobody has a right to their body. But I don't think what's inside them is their body. And I think that's sure. You see what I'm saying? I think that's the difference.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would. I said this earlier in the thing. I completely agree, and I'm not the only pro-life person to say this. It is your body, your choice, but it's not your body. It's a own human life is what is, even if it needs to have it needs to be with the mother on it, that doesn't mean it's like I said, do you Elijah, do you have, not you again, let's say you get married and have a wife and you guys get pregnant, she's not going to have 4 arms, she's not going to have 4 legs, she's not going to have 2 heartbeats, she's not going to have, and I think this is another big thing is why a lot of pro-life people so emphasize the moment of fertilization, right? Is because at that moment is when the DNA starts. Is the moment. That's the moment the DNA is starting to develop, and that's because, the woman's DNA is not that. I don't know what I'm trying to play your side too.
No, use whatever.
I'm gonna say the baby. It's not. It's not the baby's DNA, right? It's 2 different, distinct DNAs, and so I think that's what that's what I would say with that. You can.
No, I think that's really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the violinist analogy?
I'm not.
Okay, it's like a famous pro-choice thing.
Okay.
That it's like I just fundamentally misses the mark. I think.
Yeah.
But the idea is what they'd say is that like imagine that the world's most famous violinist was hooked up to you, and then such that if you unhooked him, he would just die. And then it's like, but you know that he's going to be unhooked in 9 months, and it's like, are you allowed to unhook yourself to kill that violinist?
Yeah.
And this is supposed to like challenge this pro-life notion.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like what's your
I would say if you know that is the violinist fully like is it just a guy to you? Do you see what I'm?
It's just a guy. Completely aware like us.
Taking a step back, this is the first time I've ever heard this.
Oh yeah.
I would say if we look at it on the onset, we know that's a person.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's even a person. Like I don't have to say a life. It's a person. So I think that if you know it's a person, even if it's attached to you, that might not be convenient. That doesn't make it right to unattach the person. If you know...
Do you think it's wrong to unattach
I do
them?
think it's wrong. If you know that it's going to kill him and it's going to end him.
Oh, interesting.
Because I don't think that your convenience should determine the value of another person's life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I said, I'm not going to attack too hard on this just because it's not something... But the extension of that would be like... can I attach myself to you?
Yeah.
Like right now? Like if I don't ask you, I can just be like, you and me together. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that goes back down to the thing of like... and I guess this would get into some hot waters, but I think it goes back down to like the whole consenting to sex is consenting to.
Yes,
pregnancy,
exactly.
You know?
Yes.
Like when you consent to sex, you're also saying I'm okay with getting pregnant. Whether you think it or not, you're still saying I'm okay with getting pregnant if I'm having sex. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that gets in some hot waters with. Not.
I'm already swimming. I'm already swimming in it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, that's the exact step that I make.
Okay.
Is that like with the violinist? It's not that he is getting attached to you. It's that you're like, hey, violinist, come here, and then you attach it, and they're like, haha, and it's like that's murder. You know what I mean? Like you were like
exactly.
You were like, hey, I'm going. It's like you are going up and attaching yourself to somebody, and then pulling out, be like, you don't have access to my body. It's like, whoa, that was you just murdered them, you know? And so I think that what the thing is though is that a lot of people don't view abortion as that generally because of this connection from consent to sex. So you have like my position, which is whether you'd want to admit it or not is much more towards the middle of the pro-life and pro-choice argument than like other people's would be. Yeah. But you have this extreme pro-choice end who is saying like even if it's a person, it's like I can still just kill him like totally reasonably, and that's just I always bring up that consent to sex because it's like you did that. It was you. You chose. Yeah, exactly. It was your fault. Yeah. So it's just not the same to me.
Exactly.
So
I have another area I want to go down.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I think it's really just it's a general like philosophy of it. Like, why would you be committing the abortion? Like, and I just want to hear your reason. Like, not you obviously, but like, why would it be acceptable for a woman to commit an abortion? Yeah.
So this would be like addressing like the positive ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
So it's like the negatives are like when it becomes a person, it's like whoa, it becomes way worse. Now you're talking about like the positives of like why would you get one?
Exactly.
So just right off the bat, I would say that I'm taking a libertarian approach to this. Okay. In that like I don't think smoking for you is good. Okay. But I think you should be allowed to smoke. Okay. So my base argument isn't that people should get abortions. It's that you can get an abortion. Because to me, I think getting an abortion is a sign of a bunch of bad decisions. Like if you need to get an abortion, you had sex with somebody when you shouldn't have. You got pregnant because you were unsafe or like really unlucky. Or like, you know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of mistakes before that. And it's like, you had a bunch of sex when you weren't ready to have a kid. It's like already there's a bunch of bad decisions. So abortion's not good. I wouldn't say that you should get an abortion.
Okay.
I would just say that you can.
Okay.
So it's like if me and my fiance right now were to get pregnant, even if we had gotten pregnant before, there would not be an abortion. Yeah. Because that's not the kind of person I am. So I don't support abortion because I want them to have it. Yeah. I support them because they should be allowed to.
Okay.
That would be my argument.
So you take a libertarian approach to it.
Yeah. And then if you want, I can expand further on the benefits of abortion. Okay. But the importance of the benefits is not really as important because, like I said, like even though I'm pro-choice, if somebody came up to me and they were like, I just got done aborting my 20th baby, I'd be like, ew. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just feel
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
even though, like, to me, nothing's wrong with that, I just feel like, stop.
Yeah, exactly,
You know,
yeah.
like, so I share that with you, that
Yeah.
intuition with you. So,
Yeah.
did that answer kind of what you were looking for?
That did answer, yeah. I guess.
What are the harms of having an abortion
Harms of
that
having an
are
abortion,
to the
yeah.
mother? Because I have a feeling that
100%. Yeah, I actually
you have a
little paper right
some
here, but
idea of those.
Yes, I do. And I have these. This is something Students for Life does. But it literally, I think we see so many people. There are many psychological, that might not be the best thing to start with, but there's many psychological things that happen with an abortion, whether that be even people later, and I think Trent Horn brought this up in the debate, like whether it's people later on in life realizing like, oh, am I a murderer now? Did I just murder my child? Maybe they convert. Maybe it's opposite from like what you did. Like maybe it's from pro-choice to pro-life, and maybe they've had 3 or 4 abortions. I think even there's several famous pro-life leaders who used to commit abortions, who used to be abortionists, and they've had to like deal with that too. They've had to deal, and obviously that's not like the perfect example because that's just sin in general. Like every sin that we commit, hopefully we do have regret and shame for it. But I think even if there's stuff right here that's even, it's not from just Students for Life, it's from AmericanPregnancy.org, after abortion, I think .org. Yeah, .org. There's abdominal cramping and pain. There's breast cancer is what it's increased risk of these following is abdominal cramp and pain, breast cancer, infection. I think that's a big thing too is infection. I've heard several stories of doctors, like, and I've heard there's this famous pro-life guy. His name is Dr. Tony Levatino. I think I'm getting that right. Have you seen the movie Unplanned? I don't know if it's a big pro-life movie. I don't know who exactly puts it on, but he was an abortionist. He had a conversion, and now he's not an abortionist. He's pro-life now. But he's even told gripping stories of like, he's like been doing, and I think he was completely okay with abortion up until birth. I could be wrong on that, but he would like have to like pull out, and he would like look and pull out and find an arm, and he'd pull out and find a leg, and like if he didn't get something, he had to like go in there, or it's increased risk of infection of any of this other thing. I think that's a lot of it. But even like it messes with women, like you said, that the example of women who've had several abortions, like they just, after a while it probably just tolls on them. It even like I think even if they don't realize like what they're doing is wrong, I think they're still like, man, what I did still could have been something, even if it's not something, like, and you would agree with that, like it could have been something. I think they would mourn the loss of that, even if it wasn't they're mourning the loss of, I think Destiny even brings this up in the video. Yeah, they're not mourning the loss of the person, they're mourning the loss of what could have been. Yeah, I think that's even a valuable thing, because I am Catholic, I am Christian, and I do believe that like God puts us there in a purpose and a reason. And it says in Scripture, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And it's because he knew you for a reason and a purpose, right? And it's like, it's even like when I was in high school, like when we had the pro-life club, we had somebody from, I believe it was 40 Days for Life. I could be wrong on that. But she started the presentation out. She was like, there are 15 of you here, or that are not here when they should be here. And that's a unique human, right? That could have brought good to the world. It could have brought evil to the world. But it could have brought good, and it could have changed the world for the better. We see people all the time who change the world for better, and so I think those are some of the, I'm kind of going on a tangent now, just rambling, but please. I think those are some of the harmful sides of an abortion. Do you want to talk about what you see as the pros?
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things is that sometimes the pro-choice movement gets lost in the sauce, and they're actively trying to devalue life. So it's not even that they think that it's just not life enough to allow an abortion. They're saying that life isn't good. Like they're just saying that thing, And so I think that it's perfectly reasonable and common to mourn that loss. Like imagine that you got pregnant and then 4 years later, you're like, dang, I can have a 4-year-old right now.
Yeah.
And I committed an abortion.
Yeah.
And I understand that pain. It's like, imagine someone comes up to you and offers you $1,000 and you just say no.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, and then a year later, you're like, dang, $1,000 would feel really good right now if it was in my hand. So I think that sometimes pro-choice people get lost and they start to devalue life and what that means. And so that's where I get into this idea to where it's like, you would find me agreeing with you on a lot of this stuff, that life is valuable, life is sacred, and if you can hunker down and make it work, you should. And even a lot of people who have survived that kind of life, and they are really great because of it.
And I would agree. I think, and this really is what stands for my entire pro-life belief, is that the most fundamental right is the right to life. And I think that even and this is probably a hot take for a lot of people, but I think even like a bad life objectively is still better than no life, you know? And I think it still even goes back to that it has the ability to get better, you know. So yeah, I don't know if
I'm an optimist. You'd find me agreeing with that too.
Yeah.
I like I said, a lot of it would just come from, you know, what I consider a lot of the words in that, you know, it's like no life. Like you can't necessarily compare the experience of having no life to a good life, even let alone a bad life. So just those two experiences. There's like a very famous like philosophical discussion about like, can you compare nothingness to good or bad? And it's like kind of not really. But what I would say, but the idea that you're driving at here, I agree with, which is that like life is worth living, and if you can make it happen, that's a benefit.
Exactly.
And so, like I said, you wouldn't find me necessarily like encouraging people to get an abortion. You know, to make the pro-choice argument, which I can also see being the truth, is that like imagine that you got pregnant at like 18, and then you're like, look, I'm gonna have a kid in 2 years, so I'm just gonna abort this one, and then you get pregnant in 2 years and you have a kid. The universe is missing that child, but it's not missing a child. And so like the idea would be like the universe is the same given you just waited. And so like an abortion like that is like, you know, to me I'd be like, you should probably just not be having sex at 18 or whatever, right? You just be like, you should have made better decisions. Yeah. But the actual outcome of the world, I find, is the same.
I mean, we can go hypotheticals all day long, but I think the problem with that is if we're being realistic with it, there's so many factors at play with that. So like, let's say I got pregnant at 18 and decided to have the abortion, and like what you said, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have it in 2 years, 4 years, whatever. But then something happens, and some medical procedure happens. Maybe for some reason like something bad happens, and they have to get like a hysterectomy or something. And they lose their uterus, and they can't have kids anymore. You know, I think you get into those hot territories with that. Then you are the universe is losing a life because you thought you were going to do this, but obviously you can't plan for that in the future. Or maybe you just can't have kids anymore. You know, after that, you get pregnant once and you can't have kids. That happens all the time. And so, or maybe not all the time, I don't know. But I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens. So that's what I would say to that.
No, and I totally get that's a totally valid response. You know, my only thing would be that talking more so, I guess, about intentionality than actual outcome. You know what I mean? The intended outcome is the same. And if it did work in the way that you had planned it, the actual outcome would be the same. But it's you know what you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
like the argument that I'm trying to make.
So
there's that too. Are there other aspects? I feel like are there other aspects of abortion that we're missing that you feel like that's on your mind a lot? Yeah. That like you feel like motivated to talk about.
I would just. And this might be getting back into the weeds a little bit. I think I would love just to maybe not press you. Maybe that's not the right word.
No, please do.
Like again, like when we have all these, and I this was one thing that I was really I found this literally this morning. I don't want this front is a little provocative, but I found this literally this morning about the different stages of the development, and it says week 6, and we could fact check this too. But like week 6, every structure that is present in an adult human being is now present in the small embryo. And then even like the heartbeat, it starts around 3 weeks is when it starts. I really just want to know, and I think you did answer this earlier, but I really would just press back, and I would press back on everybody listening too. Like what are you killing then? I'm not gonna say murder because you don't believe it's murdering, but like, what are you killing then when you kill that DNA that's from your mom and dad? You know, like what are you killing? I think that's something that rattles in my head a lot. Is like and I even wrote this on. I wrote some notes before. I said like, okay, let's just for sake of the argument, if what you're saying is true, like what are you killing? I don't know if, and maybe you touched on this enough, but
no, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
What I would say is you're killing two things. Okay. I would say, like, literally what you're killing would be something akin to, like, a tree or something like that.
A tree with a heartbeat.
Yeah, what I would say is that, the thing is that without a brain, a worm is more conscious than a fetus.
Okay.
And so when you're talking about these things, like, the heartbeat illustrates life, which is necessary for consciousness.
Yes,
but it's not sufficient for consciousness. Okay. As in, like, just being alive isn't enough to say that something is conscious. So just having a heartbeat isn't enough. So it's like, it would be like killing a lamp with a heartbeat. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's like, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that
I would say a heartbeat, and this is gonna sound a little,
and a face and an arm, like, and like, no, like I said, I totally get. It would. What I would say is whatever you allow to justify the killing of animals is more than enough to justify killing a fetus, despite having a lot of the same aspects, is what I would say. Okay. But more importantly, or what I imagine you might be focusing on more, is you're killing the dream of a person. You're killing the dream of a future person. You're killing what could have been. Yeah. You're killing a universe in which that person existed. And I empathize with that. Yeah. The only thing is that, I guess thankfully for my argument, whatever, is that nobody actually experiences that universe. They can imagine it in their head, and they can feel the impacts of that in their head, but it doesn't actually exist. That universe where the person is there is not and cannot be experienced by anybody. And so I empathize with it, and I understand what you're saying, and I feel that too. But legality and morality, I don't think can play into those kinds of universes very well, if at all, is what I would say. Okay.
So I guess I would push back again on, remind me, what were the specific, do you have specific terms? What were the specific terms you would define that as? You said it was
there's like a perceived,
a human life. Do you see where I'm going?
Oh, like, yeah, it'd be like a human life, and then like a person would be the big distinction that I make. Yes. And then it would be like,
So you're saying at the moment of, do you have a moment when it becomes a human life? Is it
a conception? Conception is when it becomes a human life. Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Yeah. So, and I don't want this. I'm not meaning for this to sound mean or anything.
No,
so you're saying,
please, yes.
You're saying, let's say like at 3 weeks, it is okay to kill that human life. Like okay.
Yeah. So just a way to frame this in a somewhat like charitable way, which is what I've been doing. Yes. This has been like an augmented argument that I've been doing a lot on my TikTok, just to get people there.
And I'm not trying to be uncharitable.
No, I totally. Like I said, both of us have a perspective that's important that we convey. Yeah. You know, so. What I've been saying a lot on my TikTok is that life isn't intrinsically valuable, and you can tell this by the plethora of times when we kill life, justifiably and morally. The most obvious and ubiquitous one is self-defense. Okay. So it's like, when I kill you in self-defense, I'm killing a life, but we've deemed that life less valuable because of X reasons. Because of whatever you want, whatever comes next, you've deemed it unvaluable because of that reason. What I would say is that because of the pros and the harms, from your perspective, the ultimate harm is being killed, so there's only pros in preventing that. And so you are allowed to kill that person because your life is being threatened. Another person might make a different argument. Yeah. But the argument isn't that life is intrinsically valuable. Life is intrinsically valuable under these circumstances. Because under war, we kill people all the time. If you believe in the death penalty, there's another one. Brain death, but life, medically assisted suicide, or just medical death in general. These are all ways that we kill life, but it's not wrong to do that. Unless you would disagree with some of them. But there are certainly cases where you can kill people and it's not wrong. What I would say is that a fetus is one of these examples of life that you can kill and it's not wrong.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know where to go with that. I would agree with, there are some things, obviously I wouldn't agree with on that, but...
Well, and what you do with that is kind of important too, because you need to have the whole argument in mind when you say something like that.
Exactly.
Because then you have to say, well, wait, why can I kill a fetus? What I will say is I'm interested if you have a perspective on this, and this will probably be one of the last points that we touch on. Is I think a lot of people instinctively dislike that description because they'll use the word innocent and they'll say that it is an innocent human life. I wonder what capacity a fetus has to be innocent, despite not making any choice, despite not doing anything, despite not being conscious. You know what I mean? I would challenge the word innocent. I wonder.
I think it would go right back to that. It did not choose to do that. The people who chose to have the life were the people who had sex. You know, and so that baby who was then created, or that fetus. I'll use your term. The fetus, the baby that was consented to it, didn't have a choice in that, right? But it was still made regardless. It was still made by two consenting adults, a male and female, and that's how it did it. I think that's where the innocence comes from, and I think also like a lot of people when they say that it comes from religious arguments too, where like the value of their life is that they're a child of God and stuff. And I would argue with that too. But I think also even just saying like they didn't choose to come into this, so why should they be harmed based on their non-choice? And I guess I can see where you could go with that too, but I don't know.
And that's a really good point. Yeah. I guess when I meant choose, I meant like how can something be innocent without an ability to choose?
Oh,
so like can a tree be innocent, or like can a cinder block be innocent?
Yeah.
Or we'll use less loaded terms. Can like a pig be innocent, or like a worm be innocent? You'd be like, oh, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. So like I guess that's more what I was asking.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So you're asking like why they would be innocent?
Like how could a fetus be innocent? Period. Like how could it have that quality if it can't think, choose, be conscious?
I think the value of their life doesn't depend on their consciousness, and I think that's something we definitely disagree on. I think the value of their life is based upon the certain characteristics that they have and that they perceive. And I also would argue religiously, like I think it does go down to, like there's, I think, I don't know if you argued about this. Maybe this is like your philosophy of abortion thing, but like just by nature of their soul, right, and the nature of their, by nature of them being a child of God and using scripture and stuff, we could deduce that. But I think even. I don't think the characteristic, I don't think the whole value of their life should be determined by the consciousness. I think even if we just take a step back and realize like, oh, there isn't even a set point for consciousness that like is clear across the board, right? So then each person's value, or I guess maybe not person, because that's when you believe the person starts. They all go down to what people think. What other people think, right? And like, I'll leave it there. Probably. I don't know if that makes sense. What I'm saying.
That makes sense to me. I would have probably jumped to a religious argument to defend the word innocent in this case as well. So I totally get it. I think we can stop it there. I think we've done a lot, but I want to give you the opportunity to kind of round the episode out. So if you want to, please do any plugging for your organization or your club or your group, or for like the national organization, and then I would love for you to summarize the conversation or any lasting points. This is really your opportunity to kind of like exit out the people who have made it this far in the episode.
Sweet, yeah. Well, Elijah, thank you for having me on. People are interested in getting to see Norman Students for Life more. We're just on Instagram at Norman Students for Life. And the events we're going to be posting pretty consistently with the events coming up. I would encourage anybody from OU listening. October 13th on the South Oval. We'll be there for good like 5 hours, I think. So National Students for Life is coming. So, but then even I think just the normal, I think it's just, I could look on Instagram, I think it's SFL, maybe Students for Life, or just maybe just National Students for Life is a national organization. But yeah, I mean, thank you for having me on. This was a great way. I love getting our voice out there too, and I love also hearing other people's opinions. Because I think it does help both of us realize like what we believe, and then also how to defend that better. And so I'll just extend my gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess thank you so much for coming on, Jacob.
Thank you,
It was
yeah.
awesome having
I
you.
appreciate it.